What's up, everybody? How's it going? It's Burke, aka Dansg08 here, and welcome to our first regular modcast. And this time I am joined by Real Deal.
Hey, what's up?
We also have Josh, aka Table.
Hey, guys.
We got Selena.
Hey, guys.
And we got Maester Erica.
Hey, guys. How are you?
So this time, as I said previously, I wanted to go with sort of smaller teams to make this thing easier to organize. And hopefully, with this sort of format, we might be able to do this thing a bit more regularly. So we've got a bunch of talking points and like a rough structure for how we want to do things. And hopefully you guys will enjoy listening to this one. So the first section that I have is just a general talk about stuff that's going on in like the gaming / Final Fantasy world. And I think... I want to start with TGS. So one of the reasons why I delayed the recording of this one a little bit was because I wanted TGS to happen first, just in case there was any sort of major Final Fantasy news going on. And at least from my perspective, the most interesting thing about TGS was that there was no news about 7 Remake or Final Fantasy 16. So what did you guys make of TGS?
Yeah, that was very surprising that we get nothing. I mean, I wonder how early, like in development, that the initial 16 news was, and I don't know how long ago was that, and we still haven't really gotten much updates since then. So that was, I mean, I expected a little bit of something, but to hear nothing about those two, I was surprised. I guess this wasn't either they don't have enough to discuss or many updates, or they want to keep on the down low, or this wasn't the platform where they wanted to do it.
I figured it was just that it was too early for them to reveal anything about what they were developing for, I guess, for 7R in general. It is kind of disappointing that they didn't say anything at all, though. But to their defense, I guess it is pretty early coming off of Intergrade, I suppose.
But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's true, 100%. Like I wonder how much of their time right after, because I think they were working on the initial like, I guess chapter 1 or whatever you want to call it, like pretty much up until its release, and then I guess they did Integrate right after that, and that took about a year. So I at least for like part 2, I'm guessing it's only been a couple months since then, and 6 months or so, and it's probably just not enough. Or I would expect them to develop them side by side, but who knows, maybe they focused 100% on the grade, and then that team is focusing 100% on part 2, and they just don't have anything for it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Intergrade was a fairly big expansion. It wasn't like some tiny little DLC, so I think it might have taken a while for them to put that one together. I think from my perspective, I didn't really expect anything to do with 7R Part 2, but absolutely nothing on 16 did surprise me a bit, because wasn't TGS last year when we got the first trailer? Was it TGS? I think it was. It was in September, no? So I think it was TGS.
I think it may have been, because it was right before everything started coming out for like the PlayStation 5 and everything. They said that Final Fantasy 16 was going to be a PlayStation 5 exclusive to start. What I find particularly interesting is that 16, based on recent news, is pretty much like all the character renders are done. They're finishing up side questing and things along those lines. And as far as I know, that's a completely separate and apart team from both Final Fantasy VII Remake and Stranger of Paradise. So I did find it a bit surprising that we didn't hear anything about either, especially 16, given that they did say that they're in the final stages and there was nothing more said. But at the same time, in their defense, like Selena said, I do like the idea of maybe them not giving us a whole lot, because, as I'm sure a lot of people in the comments will agree, we don't want another 15 on our hands. So maybe it's best that a lot of this is kind of kept under wraps, and we just see it when it's in its beautiful final product. But I mentioned to you guys in Discord the other day, I can't make sense of the fact that Stranger of Paradise just came out of nowhere and is about to come out in March, but we have nothing about any of the other games. It's just a mystery.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just kind of a game that really I never heard anybody clamoring for it. And, remake in 16 seemed to be pretty, appeasing the masses, I guess. So it did come out of left field, and especially all these everything else that they mentioned in TGS. At least from my perspective, it's mostly like, we didn't really ask for this. Can you just work on the two main games? Yeah, this is chaos.
my headcanon for how Stranger of Paradise came out was that I feel like Square Enix in and of itself is a huge company, and I feel like they divide up the development of their games far more than I guess the average person assumes, just when you think about
100%.
Square Enix like as a monolith creating games. So I want to say that just like some right out of left field like group of devs in like within Square Enix were just like, hey, we've kind of got this ready to go. You guys want to give it a go? And they're like, yeah, we got nothing going on right now.
Yeah. I wonder if like that team finished up a project before working on this new one, and they just like, all right, well, what's the new project we could work on? And it could have been that. And yeah, who knows? It's all speculative about how their development
Can
process works.
Can I ask you guys a question? So I don't know if you guys have seen on Twitter that one scene that everybody keeps replaying when Jack has his cell phone, which to me, I don't understand why he has a cell phone, but he does. And I can't remember her name. He's talking to the girl and he goes, bullshit. And then and then magically a song starts playing. I know some of them are memes, obviously, but allegedly it's like a Limp Bizkit song. So like, do we think that's real? I hope not.
I feel like it could be real. From what we've seen of the game already, I feel like it could be.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of.
That'll be, I can't even imagine what that process would be like. Square Enix development headquarters, like, all right, we need to talk to Limp Bizkit's people to sign off on getting some new music or some music to allow in our game. And I'm sure if it is real, Limp Bizkit's people are, it's like, what the heck? Who are these people? Like, they want us to Limp Bizkit in a Final Fantasy game?
Nobody's called us in 10 years.
Yeah, right.
Someone get Mr. Biscuit himself on the line right now.
Yeah, I mean the vibe that I got from the trailer as well is just it increasingly just feels like this sort of game that it doesn't want you to take it too seriously in terms of its like story and all that kind of stuff. It's just go in there and just enjoy the chaos kind of thing. And then it's like, but it just doesn't feel that necessary. Like, at least from my perspective, I just see that game and I feel like, does Final Fantasy need to be this game? Like, why? And I feel like sometimes I get a vibe of, if this game wasn't called Final Fantasy Origins and it didn't have a cactuar in it, or whatever, like, how many people would actually care? Like,
right?
It doesn't really feel like that game to me. But I mean, there is also a lot of hype. I have been looking through like responses and comments, and there is a legit number of people that are genuinely excited and think that the game looks really good. So even though it doesn't appeal personally to me at the moment, it does feel like it could be maybe more of a hit than I was expecting. I'm definitely curious to see like how it performs when it comes out.
I mean, at this rate, I'm not even going to be able to play it until I'm in my 30s because nobody can get a PlayStation 5. So
that's true. Oh yeah, sorry to interrupt, but I do remember another talking point about Strangers of Paradise is the whole it is going to be available for the PS4 as well, but they're not letting you play the trial on the PS4. So everyone's assumption about that is obviously it runs like total shit on the PS4, and you're going to sell people copies of the game on PS4, and it's going to be maybe like a cyberpunk type thing where they're going to get it and they're like, this game runs horrifically and I want my money back.
Well, they're definitely going to make it. They're definitely going to downgrade a lot of stuff in the PlayStation 4. I really hope it's not a cyberpunk situation, but I can imagine, I can see why they did this, because all of the YouTube videos are going to be of the PlayStation 5 version, and it's going to look a lot really beautiful, and that's going to say, like, you don't know how ugly it's going to look on the PS4 version, so you just assume, hope for the best and still buy it. Unless you were to see some comparisons beforehand. But I if I was Square Enix, I would do the same thing, saying that one is going to sell more PS5s, which I'm sure the whole development community is just sick of. Just developing a game to make it backwards compatible for a system that's already been, the new generation's already been out for a year. So they're just, they probably understand the situation of, not everybody has a PS4, so they have, or PS5, so they have to develop the PS4 version just to sell more copies. And I'm sure that's probably cause a delay a bit, and it's a bit of a pain in the ass for developers to make it backwards compatible.
Everybody already has such a problem with the fact that they have to design for like every version of iOS that's out for every phone.
Yeah, I think that's just going to get increasingly worse over time. I mean, before the PS5 came out, my guess was that like by 2022, the cross-gen games are going to start to end, because the gap's probably just going to grow too much, and they're going to be like, look, guys, just if you want the game, get a damn PS5. I don't care how difficult it is. This is how we're rolling from here.
Do you guys think that they'll, given the fact that it has been so incredibly difficult to get a PlayStation 5, and it's been about a year at this point since things have dropped, that they will reduce the prices because of the shortage issue, or do you think that they will keep the same price
for the PS5?
I think it's going to stay the same. I don't think they're going to drop the prices.
Same.
Because the demand is still so high. Like, they don't need to drop the prices. People are still going to buy them at whatever price it's at.
I mean, people buy them at $1,500 a pop on eBay. So
yeah. I think for me it's a question of how many units that have been sold are actually in the home of people that are playing them versus being stockpiled to be sold on. Because I'm assuming some sort of, like, the sales figure from Sony is that they're saying, let's say they've sold, like, just off the top of my head, 10 million PS5s, but maybe, let's say, 10%, 20%, 30% of those PS5s are taken by scalpers that are just waiting for someone to pay them double the price to take it off their hands. So it is, I'm not sure, like, literally how many people actually even have a PS5 right now. Like, is that number healthier than we think, or is it truly, like, quite a shortage at the moment? I don't know.
I think it's a combination of that, but isn't there actually, I don't know the full reason, but isn't there just in general a chip shortage right now for everything?
Even for like trucks and cars and stuff, there's a huge chip shortage because of lack of employees and obviously COVID and everything else.
Even my work is having like a small fire because we can't get chips into the office.
Wow.
It's really just a perfect storm of
of
the situation, just because the chip shortage and COVID brought a lot of people into gaming, and it was something that you can do at home, so people started playing a lot more games, and lo and behold, that's right when, hey, there's a sexy new generation of games just came out, so everybody, the demand probably doubled or even tripled for this kind of stuff. And so if I gotta wonder, like, if this COVID stuff never happened, would we be having this problem today?
I don't think so.
It's just such a crazy side effect that, if you were in beginning of 2020 or when all of this started, you would have never guessed that this would have been causing this issue.
Yeah. I mean, we've all been around for enough, like, console launches that I'm sure we can't remember anything like this happening with, like, the previous consoles that came out before it.
Yeah.
It's too much of a difference.
But there's Stranger's Paradise is definitely going to be interesting. I'm glad that it has a release date of March. And then all the other, like, the what was the other? First Soldier was interesting.
That's soon, right?
That's
November.
Yeah. Is anyone going to try it? I feel like Real might give it a go.
So what's interesting is it comes out for iOS and Android, and what's pretty interesting, like I hate playing games on like my phone and iPads and stuff like that, just because of like the soft buttons that always screws me up, and I don't know, I just would like to play on a console or PC. But with Windows 11 coming out soon, there's going to be a feature that you can play Android games on Windows 11. So I wonder when that feature comes out if I could play this on my PC, because I could be able to do that. So if I could do that, then that would be kind of cool. I would give that a shot, but I'm not going to play it.
I totally forgot that Windows 11 was coming out so soon.
Yeah, it came out this week, yesterday. I think you could probably tell your computer to make the update, but yeah, because I was watching a video on that yesterday to see how it went. But that's not a feature right now, but it's something that will come out and be a feature for Windows 11. So cool. I think that would probably help things a little bit, given that initial reviews say it's actually fun.
I think I read, I think I saw a tweet or something that they announced that there's controller support for it or something, even if you're playing mobile, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I remember seeing something like that too. But again, it's one of these things where it could surprise a lot of people with like how many people give it a go, because I think it's coming out before the Final Fantasy 14 expansion and stuff, and in general there's a bit of a lull in sort of new Final Fantasy stuff. I think a lot of people are just eager for something called Final Fantasy to just play for a little bit, just for some fun. Like a lot of people could jump in, to be honest.
In regards to First Soldier too, like they have, and I don't know if it's for every phone, but don't they have the things you can buy online where it's a controller that you can connect your phone to? I wonder if people will take that route for First Soldier, and just to give it a shot so it feels a little bit more natural versus like Real said, the very gentle touches on a touch screen.
Yeah.
I feel like the same people that will buy into First Soldier on its initial release are probably the people that also like our game to have a controller for their phone.
Yeah, I think the market in the East is very mobile heavy, and so I think it's probably going to do well in the East, but it just might not translate that well over here.
I'm gonna try it. I heard it was pretty snappy when like people were putting out some like beta reviews and everything like that. So
I do wonder if it has any actual like story in terms of like, have they made any real effort to put any legit like Final Fantasy history in there, like story, expand out the Final Fantasy 7 universe, or is it really just like very, very heavily focused on just the entertainment and the game itself?
Did you guys see that article where people had thought there was a gray-haired First Soldier, and in either the trailer or something along those lines, and everybody lost their mind and was speculating that it was Sephiroth, and Nomura had to be like, nah fam, that ain't it. So I wonder if, like, similar to what you said, Burke, where it kind of like filters into more story driven options.
I have to imagine that it's going to be very light story, because games like this, multiplayer games like this, I can't see where they would be able to fit that kind of stuff in.
Yeah, I'm doubtful too, but it's something that I guess if there is a bit of like interesting story, I'll probably just check out like what it's about and that kind of thing. I don't think I'm ever going to play it. I definitely can't see myself playing it, but
yes,
I'm curious to see how it pans out.
Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, so I will say that if it does have support for Windows 11 and controller support, you're definitely going to want either of those to play the game, because anybody playing on the soft phone controls are going to be at such a disadvantage.
True.
You're not even going to have fun. Like,
yep.
That's true.
Yeah. And like, especially because this has some shooting elements, and like I just watched the trailer, and you can use a sniper and stuff like that. You can't do that well on a soft controls and
oh yeah,
not with that attitude.
Noobs, get good.
All right, so let's see you do it.
I once, oh man, there was a time when I was visiting a friend in Japan, and I was in one of their trains during like a rush hour, and I was like seeing everybody play on their phones, which is fascinating. But I saw this one girl like on the morning train. She like had her phone in one hand, had like a compact for like blush, I think, and then she was doing eyeliner with her other hand, and she was holding a mirror, and I was like, and she was standing on this bus, and I was like, what is happening right now?
I bet her eyeliner was perfect too.
So if you want to talk about levels of dexterity, I feel like they've got an upper hand on us anyway, though. So
that's crazy.
They've trained for this.
I was curious if you guys think so. Back, it was last year when all of these things were happening, Pixel Remaster and everything along those lines. They were talking about bringing out Crisis Core and Dirge of Cerberus and everything like that with more updated graphics. When do you guys think we're going to see that?
I wouldn't be surprised if the team that is doing all the Pixel remasters, well, I don't know. I wonder. I guess it's just really how they divide the team up, because I wonder if it's going to be the same team that's going to be doing like that did the FF8 remaster.
I mean, that wasn't really a team though. That seemed like it was about one person. That was not a team. That was not a team effort. I'm sorry. No way.
Whoever did the FF8, because I would imagine it's like the same type of work. So I don't.
Really? I thought they'd be so different. They were built on completely different platforms, weren't they?
Yes, but the process of like doing all the reshades of all the different models and stuff like that, upscaling and stuff, might be the same. I'm kind of talking out of my ass here, but
it's just
you gotta know these things though.
It's just weird though, because in general it seems to me like Square Enix is they're so divided right now in terms of like, if you think of how many things they have on the go right now, you've got 7 Remake 2, you have Final Fantasy 16, you have Strangers of Paradise, you have Ever Crisis, you have The First Soldier, and you have Pixel Remasters, literally all going on at the same time from the same companies. Like, how the hell can they run so many projects concurrently? It's kind of mind-blowing.
And that's just Final Fantasy. I mean, they have the Guardians of the Galaxy stuff going. They have the new Stranger Things.
Don't forget.
Not Stranger Things.
Final Fantasy 14 expansion.
The new expansion to the critically acclaimed MMO Final Fantasy 14. Final Fantasy 14 Endwalker. Please look forward to it.
At least I got there before Josh, I remembered.
Life is Strange, that's what I meant. Life is Strange, new one's coming out soon, and I think that's
There's
Square,
also,
right?
and Forspoken, and
True.
Forspoken looks really cool.
I would, just for my own curiosity's sake, for how like a video game company just kind of runs its like internal hierarchy, I would love to find out what the breakdown is for how many people are on one team and on multiple teams and working on things like at the same time.
Yeah.
Like Square, I think now owns like all the Tomb Raider series stuff too, but that might be a different. So they might have they might have bought out a different company. Like I think Eidos. Well, is it Eidos now? I don't remember.
Eidos Montreal or something. I don't remember.
Yeah, but, like that might be just a smaller company, and Square is just the parent company. So I wonder.
They might be publishing. I'm not sure if they're developing or if they're just publishers for Square for Tomb Raider now. But going back to what Erica said about Crisis Core and Dirge, I think I remember hearing that like they might integrate the story of that into the whole Ever Crisis thing, like where they're sort of remaking the original Final Fantasy VII. So I'd heard from some people that the Crisis Core story and stuff is going to be put into that, and Ever Crisis is going to turn into this complete like OG experience that's going to be pretty unedited from like the original one. I think I remember something like that.
And that's also, it says, I mean, this is based on Wikipedia, so everyone take it with a grain of salt before you come at me. It says initial release date 2022, but that is also on Android and iOS. So we're getting those, touchscreen controls again.
Yeah. I don't know. Ever Crisis, I think I like the idea of it because it really is the ultimate, like, well, if you don't like what we've done with the remake, here's your sort of unedited original version, you crybabies, just play that instead. And like, I get it,
You
and that's cool
bunch
to
of
have as well.
babies. Is that what someone called us the last time we discussed this?
Probably, but I guess ultimately, it's left me wondering again when we're gonna potentially see 16 or 7.2, because I think for me one of the main things was that I think everyone was genuinely surprised by how much the trailer had last year. I mean, if you look at 2020 September, we already got like a 4-minute, pretty big trailer for Final Fantasy 16, and it's already been more than 12 months since that big trailer, and you think they've got to be, like, again, as Erica said as well, there is news kind of floating around that they have done significant portions. I think I'd read that the English voice acting has almost been completely recorded for the game, and that kind of stuff.
That's so cool.
So you're like, these guys are like, they're getting close, but that they're not revealing anything more, like, despite hitting us with such a big trailer last year. So
when's the next event?
Good question.
I don't know. Like, for me, when nothing happened at E3, usually, like, when you see nothing at E3, you're like, oh, TGS, like, that's when they'll do it. And then TGS went by, and I was like, I don't know what the next thing is. Like, I don't know when we're going to see it.
Maybe they're just gonna have like a Square Enix Direct or something like that, and just announce it at that point.
I'll never forget the evening that they did a Square Enix Direct, and Real and I were chatting back and forth on Discord, and I was like, we're gonna get Final Fantasy VIII Remaster, I'm telling you. And he's like, no we're not. No we're not. And then the very last thing, you hear a Liberali Fatale play, and I was like, messaged him immediately. I was like, I knew it.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I specifically, I was like, yeah, because it was faded. I'm like, yeah, I swear to God, if this is Final Fantasy VIII Remaster, and then I heard it, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, like, of course. And I just, I'm like, you're probably dead right now, aren't you?
Well, who knows? Maybe they're actually doing what we discussed, like, before we started recording, that they actually are just like putting less power into doing their trailers for this one just to get it out sooner.
Yeah,
and have it be a good product.
I mean, that's like, that's heavy conjecture, and I don't know if any of that is true, and maybe they're just blowing smoke up our ass about, like, not actually having anything ready, but, I can believe that.
Well, maybe with it being PS5 exclusive, I think they said, right? Maybe they have a deal with Sony to only announce it at PlayStation Directs, I guess you can call them. Which happen, quarterly at this point, I think?
Yeah, there's the state of play stuff.
The state of play, yeah. Maybe that's the only thing I can think of upcoming that they might announce it then. So I don't know.
Possible.
Yeah, I mean, this console exclusivity stuff is getting a bit weird. I was talking to Real about it the other day, where on paper there is a definite sort of vibe that everything is basically going to come to Steam eventually. Like, even stuff that you considered almost like sacred, like Uncharted, surely can't come to PC. And it's like, no, Uncharted 4 is coming to Steam and stuff. But then when you think about, like, the timing, I remember when Final Fantasy VII Remake was first coming out and it was known that it was a timed exclusive, a lot of people were like, oh yeah, don't worry, it's coming to Steam anyway, I'll just wait, I'll play it on Steam, I don't need a PS4, or like for Intergrade, I don't need a PS5, it's going to come out anyway. And then when you look at the actual thing, I mean, the game's more than 18 months old now, and there's still no sign of it coming to Steam anytime soon. So it's like, how long are people willing to wait for that whole, oh, it's coming on Steam anyway? What, like 3 years, 5 years? Isn't that too long?
Yeah, it's what confuses me about 16 especially. The initial trailer says exclusive for PlayStation with an asterisk that says also available on PC. like what? I don't know if that meant a timed exclusive on PlayStation and then it's going to be on PC or
Probably.
What? Which I'm guessing, but for me personally, I have such a huge backlog of games that I personally am okay with waiting, because I'm probably going to go play something else on my backlog while I wait for it to come out on PC. And at least a lot of memes that I see on the PC Master Race subreddit and stuff like that. That's a common thing that people just have so many Steam games because the Steam sales are so good that I think a lot of people are a lot of PC players have that patience that say I can wait because you paid so much money for that good PC that you wanted to have look that you're willing to wait for it to look that prettier on your PC anyway. I'm assuming you have a higher end PC. It's going to look better on that than the console. So it's worth the wait there.
Burke, what are you going to do about Stranger of Paradise?
Honestly, at the moment, like the first time the trial came out, again, it was like one of these, like I wasn't expecting it to even be a thing, and it was like, well, I have to give this a try because it's such a weird sort of thing, and it's Final Fantasy, of course, I've got to try. And I think if you guys watched it as well, you could see that like I didn't really enjoy it that much. I mean, I'm not going to act like it was an amazing experience for me. It wasn't, but it was one of these things I felt like I had to try. And honestly, like unless the game comes out and it gets really like much more positive reaction than I expected, or like they're like, oh, actually, weirdly enough, there's a really cool story there as well, or that kind of thing, then I could see myself jumping in. But as a day one thing, or like pre-ordering it or having it on the channel on day one, it seems unlikely. I guess, being in the position that I'm in, there's a chance that Square Enix are going to want to send me a copy of the game. And I guess if they do, maybe I could just try having like one session just to, give people an idea of what the full game is like for people that want to see me play it and have my sort of take on it. I could maybe just upload like one session,
like an hour, like you've done with other games.
Yeah, and just see how I'm feeling. Like not kind of promise to play the whole thing, but just kind of play a bit, see how I'm feeling. And if I'm like, oh, actually, this is better than I remember, then I could see myself kind of continuing on. But honestly, like as a feeling right now, I'd rather be playing like, I don't know, I'd rather play like Sekiro. I'd rather play Dark Souls.
Please.
Yeah.
For your own sake, play Sekiro. What a good game.
Yeah, so like instead of Strangers of Paradise, I feel like I'd rather play something like that instead. But that's just generally where I'm at.
So what you're telling us is you don't want to yeet a cactuar off a ledge, and you don't want to be motorboated by a mysterious blue figure. That's what I'm getting.
Wait, tell me more about that.
Spicy.
Yeah, those are some weird moments in the trailer. I was like, did I just see that correctly? Is that what happened?
Oh boy.
He picked that cactuar up by the leg and was like, bye. And I was like, wow.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of memes from that game, I feel.
Yeah. Well, it started with chaos, so.
Seems like
it can only go up from here, so that's what you're saying.
At least from the first demo, it seemed like Psych was interested, so it seems like he's going to be playing that. I don't know if he played the new demo yet, but
I think he did. I remember him saying that it felt like it's weird because it felt like I was experiencing two different things in the sense that I'd seen people say that there's a new level to it that wasn't in the first trial, but then he said to me it's basically the same as the first trial except you have like new jobs that weren't in the first one, and obviously there's a few tweaks and changes and that kind of thing, but he made it sound like it was basically a rerun of the same thing. But I haven't watched it or tried it, so I don't know.
Yeah, it seems like I would guess if any of us were to play it, he would be on board, so I'm interested to see if he does play it, hear what he has to say about it.
Yeah, if we can get him on the next modcast, I think I'll ask him what he makes of it.
Sightcast.
Yeah.
Sight tells all. Stranger of Paradise.
Psyduck.
You won't believe.
You will not believe.
Shilling for Square Enix.
Well, there's also Psych said something about a multiplayer.
Yeah, that's actually something that did kind of interest me. Where it seems like you can basically like multiplayer co-op it, I think, online.
Ooh, okay.
Now that's definitely interesting, and that's something that, I mean, you guys all know that I'm not a multiplayer guy, but I think as a concept, since the game does seem a bit more sort of, less serious and more about the fun and the action and the chaos and the madness, if you're in it with like 2 or 3 other friends and you're going on this like chaos adventure. It seems like it could definitely work better, I think. So that looks promising.
Make a good drinking game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I wonder if they're taking a page out of like Dark Souls and Bloodborne's book where it's a multiplayer co-op in the sense that in Bloodborne and Dark Souls you can like there are people who are online who can like cut in with you. So I wonder if that's what they mean, or if it's going to be like an actual multiplayer, kind of like not like an MMO, but maybe like a small kind of thing.
Yeah, I think I asked Syke about it, and I think he did the trial single player. The second trial he did it single player. So I don't have any like anecdotal evidence of people that have tried it with multiplayer yet. But I guess we can maybe find that out ourselves. But it's definitely interesting. I think in terms of like gaming news, one other thing that took my interest was we're talking about like cross-gen stuff like PS4 and PS5, and the PS4 is starting to really show its age with like certain games, and is it even right to release it on there anymore? There's a Nintendo Switch OLED model coming out very, very soon. Is that something that's interesting? Anyone? Does anyone want a Switch OLED model? Has anyone seen anything about it?
No, it's I'm kind of shocked that that they, I don't know, like that they even did this because how long has the Switch been out now? Since what, 2016?
17, I think. I'm not 100% sure, but it's at least 4 years old.
And it sold like crazy. So I imagine everybody who has a Switch or wants a Switch probably has one by now. And I don't see it. I don't know what the motivation to, other than the screen might look a little nicer, but is that worth an extra whatever $300? No.
I thought they were purely capitalizing on the fact that everybody really wanted, like desperately wanted a Switch once the pandemic hit. So they're just like, okay, we got to get a new generation out now just in case, like, especially because they sold out of the like Switches once the pandemic hit so fast. And they're still in production, I think, and they're still pretty high in demand. So I'm sure this was just like purely a, let's put something new on the market so we can, for the sake of putting something new in the market. So that,
yeah, I wonder if
whoever missed out gets one now.
They're just not going to sell the other version anymore, and it's just going to be this OLED. I don't know if they'll have them side by side. If they don't, then that kind of makes more sense because it's just like, hey, this is
Do we know what
better.
the price difference between the two was?
I'm not sure.
I can look it up, but
because it's funny. I was also at the beginning of the pandemic one of those people that like really started considering getting a Switch, but I never was able to pull the trigger because I was like, I don't want this enough for me to, one, leave my house, and then two, like pay whatever it was to get it. And it was already sold out everywhere anyway, so it's like, I'm not going to go to this effort.
Yeah.
The OLED is $350.
yeah, $50 more.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
it's
then
$350 more?
It's $50 more at
$50.
So-
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I was gonna be like, God damn, like
That would
what?
have been insane. I think from my own perspective, people I've been like chatting to personally over like the last year or so, I've always said that I am interested in getting a Switch, and because Breath of the Wild was something I really wanted to play, and a lot of people said to me, it's been 3 or 4 years since it came out. There's rumors going on that there's going to be a Switch Pro. It's going to be a bit more powerful. It's going to be like the updated version. And in my head, it was always like, well, if I haven't got one for the last 3 or 4 years, and I've seen a lot of videos and I've seen how difficult it is to port a lot of games to the Switch, like Witcher 3 is on the Switch, and that's like a miracle that they've managed to get that game to run somewhat decently on the Switch. But as time goes on, it's just going to get more and more difficult for companies to make that investment to port a game to the Switch. So I was thinking, if I just wait and I get the Switch Pro when it comes out, then I'm sure I'm going to be able to enjoy a lot more of these sort of ported games and that kind of thing. So then when I heard the OLED model was literally just pretty much a screen upgrade, there's no like computing power upgrade, I was really surprised. I was like, well, no, like I don't think I want to spend the $350 on that. And that kind of pushed me towards the Steam Deck, which was kind of announced like 6 months ago or something. And what I'd seen of that was just like, that's basically a handheld PC, and you can run like your own operating system. all of your Steam games, and it looks like it can run pretty much everything that you have on Steam to some sort of decent degree. And I was like, well, that's basically what I wanted the Switch Pro to be in terms of like computing power and what it could run. And well, this gives me even more flexibility than a Switch. I can play everything that's on my Steam account. So for the moment, I've got like a reserve on the Steam Deck. They wanted like a £4 or $5 deposit or something. And I think I'll have an opportunity to buy one in a few months. So I think I'm going to check that out instead of the Switch.
Yeah, I think that's a good call because really, I think most people buy a Switch just for the exclusive games on it, and Mario is such a powerhouse that you need to have a Switch to buy that. And if you're not into Mario and not into that genre, then there's really no need.
I mean, I always thought in general that the Switch like really catered to just like people casually playing games and picking them up whenever they wanted to, right? And like by the same reasoning that everybody buys like a new iPhone, even though like an Apple employee told me the last time I was in there, like, what's the difference between the 8 and the 10 or something? It was like, it's just the screen. It's literally like everything on the inside is the same. It's just the screen. And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, but it's selling anyways. So I was like, this is probably the exact same sort of thinking, right? Like they're just changing the screen and people will buy it anyways. And then like if it appeals to that kind of casual person that just wants a screen upgrade, then why not do that? If it's like, they don't even have to change the design of the Switch. They don't have to do anything. They just have to source a new part for it. So that's just more revenue coming in, right?
Yeah. Based on what I'd seen and what I'd investigated about the whole thing, to me, it seems like there was a bit of a golden age where some big developers did spend the money and the time to port games that you thought maybe couldn't be ported and bring them to the Switch, like Witcher 3. But I think that gulf in sort of technology is growing so much now that the Switch just doesn't have the horsepower to run a lot more of these most common, most popular games that's coming out. But I think what they're starting to do more now is have cloud games. So I think you guys would have heard that Kingdom Hearts is coming to the Switch.
Sora's finally in Smash, y'all.
Yeah,
he did it.
Exactly. And they're releasing a lot of the Kingdom Hearts games on Switch, but they're cloud-based, so you basically stream the game using your Switch. So I think the age of like the sort of Witcher 3 type ports, I think, is going to come to an end. And they're going to push you to stream these games, so they don't really... The horsepower of the machine, it becomes less and less relevant. And maybe that's why for the OLED model, they're like, well, we don't even need to do this, because such a huge player base doesn't really require the big demanding ported games, and we're going to push for like more streaming of games using the device. So maybe we're not going to even see a Switch Pro or something like in the next couple of years. I don't know.
Yeah, that's going to be very interesting. With Stadia and all, and the Amazon tried it, I think, but stream gaming hasn't really been executed well yet. And especially Nintendo's online network is not that great to begin with. So I'm really interested to see how this cloud gaming feature will be, because like you said, it's games nowadays are for next gen, and Switch is essentially last gen at this point. And so either they're going to be forced to do this cloud gaming, which is going to be interesting, because especially maybe might not be as important for some Nintendo games, but if you're going to have a lot of input lag and all that kind of stuff, then it's going to deter some people away.
Yeah, I kind of want to guess that like just when they started making the Switch, I guess they just didn't anticipate people wanting titles that required so much more out of the Switch system to be in demand. And now that it's here, they're just like, okay, this is just like impractical. So what do we do? I mean, like 3 or 4 years of like, dead space between the first like for the Switch and development time, I guess clearly kind of shows that they're struggling trying to get these better these games onto the Switch, right? So they're inevitably going to have to change something, right?
the feedback is kind of funny. I found an article about it. It's just talking about 3 Kingdom Hearts games are coming to the Switch, but they're all cloud versions. So Kingdom Hearts HD 1.5, 2.5 Remix, Kingdom Hearts HD 2.8 Final Chapter Prologue, and Kingdom Hearts 3. They always have great names. And then the comment section, these are literally just the first comments. Absolutely nonsensical decision. They couldn't be bothered to port the first 2 collections to Switch, considering they're literally PS3 games. Hate these cloud solutions. This is why we can't have nice things. Bad SE, bad. This is absolute trash. Easy pass. So I don't know.
Damn.
People don't seem that enthused by the cloud version thing.
Yeah, it just hasn't worked yet, so I can
Yeah.
see the hesitation for trying it. So, do we have a date for that? When that's coming? Or I don't think they did.
I don't think so. No.
No.
No,
Yeah.
Sakurai said that they weren't sure. At least that's what I remember seeing regarding the direct. But that Sora was coming.
Yeah,
shortly.
there's no date.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I don't know.
I hope it, like, if this doesn't work out, the cloud gaming, just because of all the issues that it's had before, I hope that, either they do like a Switch Pro or whatever they do in the future, that backwards compatibility will be easier. I'm hoping that we're kind of out of that window where you had it like developed for the hardware sort of thing, like back in the PS2 and GameCube days, like you had the hard part about backwards compatibility and all that kind of stuff. Now, like why PS5 can't play PS2 is that PS2 games are programmed in such a way that it had to be working with that specific hardware. And I'm hoping that nowadays that the Switch and the PS5 and all that kind of stuff, they're kind of almost like computers at this point, and they might be easier to develop for. I'm hoping that games today, including Switch games, can be easily ported to the next generation, or like more powerful. Like we're not going to be, I don't know, that we might just see like a Switch Pro or just new versions of the Switch that might just have better hardware instead of like a new generation that has completely different types of hardware or stuff like that. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm wondering though, are these cloud versions cheaper than like proper digital versions? I don't know how it works because you're basically kind of like almost renting it or something.
Yeah,
I wonder how much they cost.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's a subscription based thing.
Yeah, because I was wondering, do they give you like a demo? Like, let's say, how can you know if you'll be able to play that game properly? Let's say you get the cloud version and you're like, wait a minute, my internet sucks too much, or like the server sucks too much. I don't like this. Do you get your money back? I don't know how it works.
You can sell it at GameStop for $3.
Yeah, and that's another drawback of the cloud gaming is that you need an internet connection. What if you're on a plane or whatever and want to play stuff? You can't.
Yeah, I don't like it, man.
Yeah, I'm curious about what sort of connection speeds and like stability you're gonna need at a baseline to play modern games with that, because as someone who lives in a very rural area, I seriously doubt that I could effectively play games through a streaming service.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it feels like maybe this whole thing is still a little bit ahead of schedule. I feel like maybe the world still needs like another 10 years or something for internet to become such a sort of genuinely universal thing where literally everybody has whatever like good fiber optic speeds we have today. That's just going to become like the norm for a big percentage of the world in, let's say, 10 years or something. Like 4G internet is going to be so much better, and whatever 5G, 6G, 7G, whatever we've got. Then maybe it's going to become like a no-brainer to just stream stuff and everyone can just stream games like it's nothing. But right now, I feel like maybe you got to have like some proper, really like solid, reliable connection. And honestly, like for things like streaming games where it seems like it has to be reliable all the time. And it's not just about having good internet, it's just having good internet that is reliable pretty much 100% of the time. So it just doesn't feel like it's ready yet for a lot of people.
I mean, I feel like we've also well established that Square has plenty on its plate to like set this down for a little bit.
Yeah, I imagine though that the cloud gaming that you'll play on the Switch. So I think that'll be. I think Square is just gonna hand over the game over to Nintendo and say, "Here, you host it. Good luck." sort of thing. So it's yeah, I'm definitely interested. That's definitely the first game that I've heard of that Nintendo's going to cloud host. I did not hear of that before yesterday.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with it, but it was pretty interesting because the first thing I heard is that the games are coming to the Switch. I didn't realize the cloud version bit, and then I found that out later, and I was like, okay, so that's the sort of catch.
Yeah. Well, if Nintendo or Square are listening, then they can hire me to help upkeep their servers. Yep.
Come on, Square. Pick it up. We've got talent waiting in wings.
Albed tech support at your
Yeah.
service.
Albed
Look
tech
how-
support.
Exactly.
The uptime of the stream. Look at that. Put it on my resume.
Yeah, it's actually funny. We were talking about it in the Discord when Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp kind of all went down. I was like, it kind of made me feel good in a way because even if something as big and powerful as Facebook and that stuff is going down, like our little stream, considering its budget, is doing pretty damn well in terms of upkeep and uptime. So I thought that was quite funny.
The little stream that could, all right?
Exactly. So be grateful for, like, even when we have like these little skipping or it goes offline now and then. I mean, if even Facebook goes offline for like half a day sometimes, I think we're doing pretty well. Okay, I think we can go to what is most likely going to be most people's favorite section, which is going to be the Final Fantasy hot takes.
Yeehaw!
Oh boy. All right. Here
Let's
we
go. So this time around, I asked on YouTube on the community page because actually I was just going to do it on Instagram and Twitter potentially, but Instagram was down at the time, and I kind of wanted to get the post out there to give people time to respond. And YouTube is still obviously the biggest platform and the easiest one to find opinions for that stuff. So I posted both on YouTube and Instagram, and I have some hot takes that I've selected from what we've got. Let me see. I think we'll start with a simple one because it's a topic that comes up so frequently that I still feel like it divides people, that it'd be good to get some opinions on this one. So there were two responders on the YouTube community page, Braver Leonhardt and Solura, who both basically talked about the fact that Final Fantasy VII is overrated.
Where's Ammo?
yeah. Hopefully we'll get Ammo to talk about this on a future one as well. But for this one, who wants to sort of talk about or respond to this?
I gotta wonder what how old those two commenters are, because if you were to play it for the first time now, it has aged. Like it's just the nature of some of these games. They have aged. The graphics are not good, but it's hard to describe how monumental that game was in that time. The storytelling that it did, which is not a thing back in 1997. It was, they budgeted this game for a movie, and I think they did a really damn good job of making it, as exciting as a movie could be. And I think that carries a lot of weight when people look at it nowadays and say why that can be the favorite, because they have that nostalgia. Nostalgia plays a huge part in it, I think, and they have that memories of their first major game that they probably spent more than 5 hours on, because back then, like, games were just kind of like a thing you played every now and then. But Final Fantasy VII is probably, for a ton of people, is that game where they needed the memory card. They needed put in 40 or 50 hours to have this crazy movie-like experience, on their TV and on their game system. So nostalgia definitely plays a huge part in it. The impact it had at that time was monumental, and I think that's why a lot of people love it so much. And if you played it for the first time now, I can see why you might think it's overrated, but it's important, I think, and just in gaming in general. So I think that's why I think it's appropriately rated. It's just important in all gaming history, I think.
Yeah, I 100% sit in that camp too, where it's like the nostalgia factor plays the biggest role in giving it weight for me as far as a game that I truly love. Because it was like the first game I played it with my sister. Like I watched her fight all these bosses, and I played it myself afterwards. And what else was I doing around that time anyways, right? Like 97, I'm just like sitting at home with my sister playing these games, and it's like one of the fondest memories I have with my sister. So I feel like it's the biggest like factor for me that makes this game so highly rated, and I truly understand why the hype is still there, because people who played it when it first came out are still playing a lot of games now.
Yeah. And I mean, FF7 has some of the most iconic characters, some of the most iconic story points, some of the most iconic music, some of the most iconic settings, like, in any game ever. Even people who haven't played it know things about FF7. There's a reason that those things are so iconic. It's because they're good. They're really good.
Josh just comes in here as just like, maybe that's just because it's good.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly.
Before I chime in, I'll wait for Erica's take as well.
Yeah, I mean, I will echo everything that everyone else said, is that iconic characters, iconic music. Next to Final Fantasy VIII, I'm just saying. Maybe not characters, but definitely music. And I mean, if this game was not truly incredible, and this is no shade to 8 because it's one of my favorite games for my own nostalgic reasons, but they wouldn't have remade this game. They wouldn't have put in all of the work that they did if it wasn't incredible, and if it wasn't something that they really believed in. So I think that goes to say a lot as well.
To be fair, Brave Leonhardt does preface the hot take with, whilst a milestone for its time, but then they go on to say, is far from the best Final Fantasy game. It doesn't even appear in my top 5, is what they've said. And obviously I've shared my thoughts on 7 plenty of times, but I think it's one of these games that it's so impossible to sort of extract the nostalgia from the objective quality of the game. But honestly, even for me, because I don't share the same nostalgia factor as a lot of other people that played the game, I feel like I'm maybe in a slightly better position than some of those people to look at it with a more objective hat, because I mean, I played Final Fantasy X before it, so if anything, the odds were sort of stacked for Final Fantasy VII in that sense, because I'm going back in time. I'm playing a game that doesn't have voice acting, for example, that kind of thing. And honestly, like the stuff that Josh was talking about, I totally agree with. And there's part of 7, there's things about it that definitely transcend like nostalgia goggles or anything like that, because those characters and like that setting, the music, everything that Josh talked about, I totally agree with. And again, if you look at the remake, I think the remake is proof. The remake was well reviewed. A lot of people really enjoyed it. And honestly, like I feel like the best thing again about the remake was like the characters and stuff, the music, the characters, the locations, and those are the same things that were great about the original game. And that's not a coincidence. And it's not something that I think nostalgia alone can purely explain. And probably the most difficult aspect of it is that it's not, I think, as sort of repeatable an experience for people that are playing it now, let's say. You can't really replicate the conditions that were there when the game first came out. So it's a piece of sort of context, like a giant piece of context that you're missing from the experience. But as someone that didn't have that myself, and I still really enjoyed it, and I'd probably still put it as my second favorite Final Fantasy, of all time. I think it has too many things going for it from the perspective of someone who doesn't have the nostalgia goggles like me. That to me, I don't think it's overrated, because it stands on its own 2 feet without the nostalgia to begin with. And then when you put in all of the nostalgia and the context for its time, it elevates it to that mythical status. And that's why I've always said, and I will always say, that Final Fantasy VII is the greatest Final Fantasy VII ever made, and it probably always will be. And to me, it's a combination of both of those things. So the idea that it's overrated, I personally have never really agreed with.
Yeah, it's hard to understate, what nostalgia has and the impact that it has on making it, somebody's favorite game. And like just with any game, it's not, if you ask someone what's your favorite Final Fantasy, the majority of the people are probably going to say the first one that they've played.
Mm-hmm.
And
True.
I think with Final Fantasy VII, it was the first one to come out on PlayStation 1, which I think was at least for us millennials, was probably the first one that we played, seeing it was the first 3D game, and that probably captured a lot of people's interest that way. So I think that everybody who's played Final Fantasy VII as their first game, I would say that probably, that has the majority of people saying that that's their favorite.
Does anyone else have anything to add about that one, or shall I move on to the next hot take?
Yeah, meet us in the comment section, Thunderdome. If you don't like what we said, meet us in the Thunderdome. Let's thrash down in the comments. Let's go.
I mean, I guess one thing I will say for them, I suppose, in favor of it being overrated, I guess I always assume that some of that comes from the fact that, like, because we're in, like, the era of the remake and everything like that, a lot of people who have, like, let's say, just started playing the remake, haven't and don't really have an interest in playing the original. Like, I'm sure it gets annoying after a while hearing everybody when they won't shut up about changes that have been made and things people are not happy about, because that is a vocal minority in, like, the world of the remake and just, like, all of Seven's lore, right? Because it's heavy and they're like they're really dear characters to people. So I'm sure when you come in and you don't know too much, I guess maybe I'm, like, being presumptuous about people who haven't played 7 or have and just don't care. But, like, I'm sure it gets annoying hearing all of that after a while. And they will continue to hear it as we continue barreling through, like, new installments for 7, right?
Definitely. Yeah. I think the final thing I'd probably add about that stuff is that what I will concede is that I think it's one of these things that, because the nostalgia factor is so strong and because it has that sort of cultural impact on people's lives, I think the sort of percentage of people that are diehard 7 fans that are in that sort of upper 5% that they will never accept any criticism about the game. They'll let that nostalgia and all of the context that's kind of irrelevant to how great the game is sometimes sort of dictate everything they believe about the game. And those people are definitely more annoying to sort of interact with or to listen to their opinions about the game and that kind of thing. And I feel like 7 probably has more of those individuals than a lot of other Final Fantasies. So I think as a fandom, maybe the Final Fantasy VII fandom, especially in that sort of upper percentile of people that are passionate about the game, there's so many of those people because of this, like, whole history that we've talked about, that I think for a lot of people it can get a bit sort of overpowering and off-putting as well. And they place the game on such a sort of impossibly high pedestal that I think a lot of people are like, come on. But honestly, I think that group of people doesn't account for enough of the general feeling and sentiment about the game for me to call the game overrated as, like, a general statement, I think.
My hot take on that hot take is that people who think 7's overrated probably think 15's like an S tier game.
Yeah. Put in the if you think Final Fantasy VII is overrated, put in the comments your top 3 Final Fantasies, and then we'll really see how hot that take is. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next one, which I thought was kind of an interesting one. username is just initials, just KK. They've said it's okay to dislike the older Final Fantasies because of their graphics quality.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Ooh.
But okay, here's my reason.
Fight.
Because when you dislike something, you can dislike something for whatever reason you want. You don't even need a good reason to dislike something. It's just liking it or not. So if you don't like something because it has like whatever level of graphics, okay. Sure. Yeah, sure. Like, you want to only play games that have, like, high-level graphics? Sure. Go ahead. Live your life.
I agree with that, but I think you can dislike the graphics, but you can still like the game overall, right?
I mean, for some people, that's just such a turnoff that they can't enjoy it, and, like, on a personal level, and I think that's okay. I think it's okay to not be able to enjoy something because of one trait that's just so off-putting about it to you that you just can't.
Yeah, I mean, I probably won't be playing a lot of the older games, just probably because of their graphical limitations. So I can kind of see that, but I can't say I never disliked the game because of the graphics. Like for example, Undertale has, very basic graphics, but I think it's one of the best games I've ever played. So
I will say that Undertale is really stylistic. Like, even though the graphics are very low quality, like, it's still a very stylized game, and I love the way it looks. But Erica, you said no.
I'll let Selena go. I know she was going to hop in there.
Okay. Yeah. I heard Selena say something.
Yeah, no. I was just saying, I guess, like, it depends, I suppose, if you played the game through, and, like, it was so, the graphics were, I guess, like, so distracting that it made you, it, like, it spoiled your journey playing the game. I guess then I would see it as a valid reason. If that's the reason that you don't even pick it up, then, I don't really know what to say. That feels a little unfair, because, like, there's a story there, like, beyond just, like, the capabilities of the graphics that I think should, like, you should give that a chance. But I don't know, I don't want to tell anyone what not and to like, I suppose, just based on that. That's really all I was just trying to say. It's like, it's kind of tough, because I don't want to stop anyone from disliking anything for any reason. You do you. But, like, it feels unfair. That's what it seems like to me.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I'm with Josh. You absolutely have your entitlement to your opinion. That's totally cool. Respect that. But in my opinion, you are putting yourself at a hindrance to not want to play a game because of its graphical style. Also, too, we had situations like in the original Final Fantasy VII where there were translation issues between the East and the West, and that didn't affect how you played the game, or, didn't turn you away from it. So I feel like it would be in a similar token to the graphical style of it. Also, I think about games like Cyberpunk that are graphically absolutely gorgeous, but technically they don't work very well. So would you rather have a game that maybe isn't graphically as pleasing but plays very well and has a good story, or would you rather play a brand new game that is graphically beautiful but doesn't play that well?
As a singular thing, like, if you're just talking just graphical quality, aside from all of the obvious, like, everyone being entitled to their opinion stuff, I think, again, it is a bit too shallow of a way to look at it. I tend to think of it more in terms of overall limitations, because if you're let's just keep it Final Fantasy. If you're talking about Final Fantasy 5, 4, whatever, the graphics being the way they are is only really the tip of the iceberg, because there's a whole lot of limitations. If you're someone that's used to playing the more modern Final Fantasies, you have to really consider what are the other limitations aside from the graphics. Well, you have no voice acting. Also, the let's say the size of the world could be impacted, the depth of the gameplay could be affected, the quality of the music that they put in could be affected. There's so many different ways in which it affects it. It's very rare that a game sort of has the ability to have it all, but it happens to have bad graphics. Usually, if a game has poor graphics, it's a result of a limitation that affects a lot of other aspects of the game. And to me, it comes down more to how does the game maximize what it can do with the limitations that it has. And Real and Josh both mentioned Undertale, and that's a perfect example where if you're the kind of person that solely thinks about graphics and you let that form your entire decision on whether to play or not, you're going to miss out on a fantastic game, because that's an example of a game that did so much with so little in terms of like what it was able to do, and it was designed so well around what its limitations were. Now, what I will accept, I think, as a better take would be like, I find overall that the old games are too technologically constrained compared to the more modern ones, and that's why I don't enjoy it as much as the modern ones. And to me, that's a bit fairer, because that encompasses a lot more of what the games aren't able to do, rather than just a superficial how do they look. So that's how I would consider it. But obviously, they're just missing out, I think, because especially like as someone who's recently started to play the older Final Fantasies, like Final Fantasy 6 is freaking awesome, and Final Fantasy 5 is really good too. I mean, it's not the same tier as 6, I think, at the moment. Probably will remain that way, but again, like there's no way. I would have definitely missed out if I never got into those, because I was like, you know what, they're too old, they're too primitive technologically. I'm probably not going to be able to get into them. I would have definitely missed out on some great games.
Yeah, I think made some great points. So I can see that the technological limitations just might not be as fun. But yeah, one thing I wanted to say that you said pretty well is, if it's just graphics, yes, that is a valid reason to dislike something. But in my opinion, it's a shallow thing to dislike. You're a shallow person. So that's my hot take.
Dang, that's a hot take.
You got to get to know them, man. You got to get to know them. It's not just about the looks.
Yeah. Like, yeah, to that end, like with the hot take, it's like the answer is like, yes, it's a valid reason to, like, a valid in that no one's barring you from saying that this is a bad game, I guess, like, because of the graphics. But like, it's a kind of naive to think that like the graphics are the only thing, like, is the only thing that will make or break this game. Like, it's foolish to think that there's nothing more to any of the games just because the quality is bad.
I mean, obviously that might not be like their entire reason, but just because they only specifically mention graphics, that's obviously what we're kind of trying to pick apart here. But it's one of these things that maybe making statements like that, it ends up saying something about you as well, and what you like and what you're into. So I think when you come with a hot take like that, let's just say it was among people like people you're having like a face-to-face personal conversation with people. If I was to be like, hanging out with people and I told them to their face, I don't like people who aren't attractive. I'm fair in saying that, like, if that's how you feel, that's how you feel. But people are going to judge me for that, and they're going to be like, really, this guy's a fucking asshole. And so if you're the kind of person, again, I'm not implying this person only thinks about graphics and nothing else, but if you're the kind of person that really is sort of the graphics are everything to me, a game has to be gorgeous for me to be interested in trying it, then be prepared for people to judge you on that take, because I feel like they probably would.
I can't believe how comparable it is to someone saying, I only date hot people.
Right?
So good. 10s only, 8 step away.
Basically, yeah. So does anyone else have anything to add for this one, or should we move to the next one?
I think next one.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think I've said all I need to say.
Mm-hmm.
The next hot take I have is to do with Final Fantasy 13, and it comes from Blind Ninja, who says Snow is the best character in Final Fantasy 13.
Nope. Hard no.
I feel like that's a legit hot take.
That is
Hard.
a very spicy take. I'm trying to think of all the
He's
characters
the best
in 13.
character in
Fang. Total hottie.
Yeah.
That's the end of the story.
Hey, yeah, 100%. Oh my god, he's kind of one of the reasons why I stopped playing 13 when I first started it all those years ago.
Yeah.
Ooh, he was too much for me.
I just think he's such a loud, I get it. There are loud personalities in almost every single Final Fantasy game. We had Waka, we had knockoff Waka, things like that. But I feel like, and Snow never meant ill intent to anyone. He always was in a position that he wanted to help others, which I think is great. But I just feel like his demeanor was just like in your face all the time, like, yeah, we got this. And meanwhile, like, you literally killed Hope's mom. So I just feel like he was just too in my face. And I think that there are far better characters that are in that cast, like Lightning, like Fang, that, I enjoyed much more and always had in my party. Not you, Snow.
Yeah.
To Burke, who, you played through, all of 13, does his character really change all that much from, personality-wise, from the very beginning to the very end? I know he has, a complex arc once you get to Lightning Returns, but
I think I think maybe you have to do a bit more sort of mental gymnastics to really make Snow likable in your head. I think he requires more sort of a bit more maybe nuance or trying to shift how you think about him kind of thing. I think at face value he's definitely an annoying guy, and he's one of these where if there was someone like him in real life around me, I'd probably hate him. But it's one of these things where I try my best to sort of think about it a bit differently sometimes as well. And it's what I would say about him is that he's got a lot of heart, and he's always had it from the very start, and that's something he retains throughout. Maybe over time he realizes the sort of downfalls of that, and obviously what happens at the start of the game, Hope's mom, all that kind of stuff. And he tries to grow from it. I don't think he's a character that shows a lot of character growth personally, but even what he does when he realizes, the consequences of his actions and that kind of stuff, he spends a lot of the game trying to sort of, apologize and win back Hope and that kind of thing. But I kind of like the fact that he's simple, he has a lot of heart, he has a lot of passion, and he's generally always a positive driving force in the story. He's the one that's trying to get something done. He's trying to make something happen in a positive way. But I think, like you guys have said, his general demeanor, his sort of look and all that kind of thing, some of the cheesy lines and all that kind of stuff, I think he's a difficult guy to love, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert in 13 at all, but he just, from what I remember, he just seemed to be a bit more one-dimensional and did not have as much depth as some of the other characters. He was kind of like an afterthought character that they need to fill the roster.
I think it's a little unfair to Snow as a character, because we as the player have this more omniscient view and see more of what's going on. So it's worse because we know what's going on, so we just see him keep making the same mistakes over and over again because he's oblivious. And it really turns us against him. To the point that even after Snow realizes what's happened and all that he's done, for a lot of people it's too late for him. And they're already dead to Snow, so no matter how much the character tries to do better, it's too late.
Yeah, I think they kind of threw him in off the deep end too much. And he doesn't have the charm or the personality to make up for it in a story like that. So maybe if they presented him as a different kind of character that still went through the same thing, so he gets Hope's mum killed as a result of his actions, maybe if he had a more redeeming sort of personality and style, that's something that over the course of the story we could have come to sort of like him more. But I think with that sort of personality, that kind of first impression, coming in as like this sort of badass hero guy where it was mostly sort of cringe, and then he ends up getting Hope's mum killed. You're like, well, you're not recovering from that, man. Like, you need to show some serious development and like turn a 180 to get people really behind you in that story. And I think they gave him too much of a mountain to climb, like narratively, and I don't think he climbed it for most people, I think. And that's why I think it is a legit hot take.
I feel like the people who think that Snow is the best character also think that Vaughn doesn't belong in 12.
Whoa. Okay. I want to hear the logic behind this.
Because they, for some reason, think that Snow's super important, but would, for some reason, wouldn't think that Vaughn is in regards to 12, when in reality, we think that he does play an important role in the story and the journey of other characters.
I think what I want Blind Ninja to do is to, same as like the people that think Final Fantasy VII is overrated.
If you think Snow is
the best character, tell us like some of your other favorite characters from the other Final Fantasies and some of the worst ones, and let's get a broader view of let's get a broader view on that.
Everyone who's given us hot takes, like, I would like to hear more.
Yeah, I want to see your defense
down in the comments. Let's throw down all of this. Like, let's do it. I don't think Snow is the best character in 13. I do like Snow. I like him as a character. I like his arc. I think my favorite character in the trilogy, I won't say the best character, but my favorite character in the trilogy is Hope, because he comes such a long way over the course of 3 games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, for me to like a character through a show, well, maybe it's a little one-sided to say that like they have to be like this, but like I like seeing change in characters, or at least that like I've watched them grow through a journey in the story, because then it means like I've gotten somewhere by the end of the game. And like, just from what I'd seen after like watching the rest of 13, after like I put it down myself, was just that like it didn't really feel like he changed. Like all the characters around him changed. And I guess that makes him, in general, for the landscape of the game, he makes himself a good foil for all the other characters. Am I using that term right? Anyways, like he makes himself like a good contrast to everybody else around him. But I don't know if that is enough to make him like the best character in 13.
I guess it's part of the reason why I'm not such a big fan of 13 at all, but I don't have a favorite character. I don't think I really cared for any of the characters personally. Like I don't know. 13 is kind of low on my list. Yeah. When I played it was a distracted time in my life, so I think that has something to do with it. But I just it didn't capture me the way that some other Final Fantasies did. So I can't personally, I can't say that this is such a hot take, because I honestly did not care too much for any of the characters. So none of them really like grabbed me.
The bar was low.
Like stuff would happen, and like events would happen to people, and I'm like, okay, let's just move on, please, and let's get to the next step.
That's kind of how I felt about a lot of the stuff in 13, and I think that might be how people feel about 12, where I don't.
Right.
But anyway, one more thing is that I think the fact, just thinking about what Rel just said and thinking about how I feel about the characters in 13, I think the fact that my favorite character only being my favorite character because of what they do with him in the sequels says a lot about the characters in Final Fantasy 13, like the original game. Just that they're just not the greatest characters out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think so. I mean, as an entire cast, I don't put it as one of the strongest Final Fantasy casts out there. And it's definitely, I think for a lot of people, it's probably not a plus. But I mean, Fang's my favorite character in the game, but she doesn't even come into the story for a little while anyway. And like for her, again, it's not really because of her arc or anything. It's just I just loved her style. and she was just super cool to like have in the party. You know, the way she bounced off other characters, her style in combat, that kind of thing. Like, it wasn't really like a deep story reason why I enjoyed Fang so much as a character. But yeah, I think, you know, Snow's competition isn't that crazy good in 13, but I still think over the years I've heard so many people tell me that they really hate Snow. So I'm putting this as a legit hot take.
This is very hot.
Yeah.
It's a very hot take. Like,
That's a spicy meatball for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even like Snow is actually a good character. This is literally Snow is the best character in Final Fantasy 13. So that's hot.
In theory, that could still be a pretty low bar. So depending on how much you like those characters. So
yeah, that's the one redeeming quality, I think.
If they said Snow is the best character in all Final Fantasy, now that's like fist fight worthy.
yeah.
That's like
Yeah.
I don't even believe you. That's just like you're trying to. That's like you're trying to
You're
get.
just saying that for notoriety.
You're just trying to get on the modcast. So
Yeah.
anyone listening that wants to send hot takes in, if your take seems so hot that it's utterly ridiculous, like it might work against you. So just like keep them hot, but not that hot.
Yeah.
We're
Not
betting
lava.
for those ones.
We need to
Yeah.
like keep it in our mouths a little bit for a while.
Okay.
Can you send me that soundbite?
Yeah, it's a shame that we don't have Yaz for this hot take. I'm sure Yaz would have something to say about this.
Definitely. I can definitely see Yaz in the comments responding to this one as well.
Guys, when you listen, please give us your defense on why this is a hot take.
Yeah.
Please defend yourself.
Okay, so I'm going to give you guys one more for this modcast. I obviously don't want to do too many because we want to make this a regular feature. I'm not going to tell you who sent this one in. I'll tell you guys at the end who sent it.
Okay.
Ooh.
Okay.
So we know them.
This one is about Final Fantasy 15.
Okay.
Okay. The hot take is Ignis is just as bad as the rest of the cast. He gets away with it because he's good looking and cooks.
I mean, yeah, he's good looking.
Wait, because he's good looking and what?
And cooks.
And cooks.
I mean, we love a good looking man who can cook. Like,
I mean, yeah.
make me some ramen. Make me some cup of noodles, boo. You know,
With like beef in it, yeah.
shrimp.
Is-
I mean, what?
you like checked off all my requirements on like my dating profile.
Buzzwords.
What do you want from Ignis? Like,
Yeah, really.
He had a good, comparatively, he had an arc that was, he grew, quote unquote, I guess, but comparatively to the other characters, like, he didn't do anything else like bad. I don't think. Like, I don't know why he would get negative feedback. I guess I don't know. Maybe they think that he's overrated because of that, which.
Yeah, I think that's what they're getting at. They're saying like, you know, everyone thirsts over him too much to really see him for what he is, and that he's not actually that great a character.
I personally have not seen that much thirst over him. I mean, he's a great meme.
There are some dark corners on the internet where
I think you just haven't
this
looked
is a
around
thing.
this.
Wait. Hold on, let me.
I'm curious who said this now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna type in.
Who do we know?
Ignis spicy pics.
Oh god.
I mean,
Listen. Okay, don't ask me how I know this, but there's like a dark part in Tumblr. There is a Tumblr account that was purely dedicated to like thirsty headcanons for every single character in Final Fantasy 15.
Of course.
And let me tell you, it is a rich tapestry of work for Ignis.
so it was
pages
mainly
and pages
Ignis then.
of-
That's interesting. I would have
Well,
never guessed. I would have
I
thought
don't-
like, what the hell?
I don't know that it's. I mean, like I have not made a tally of how many there are for each of these characters. I did not spend that much time on it for fear someone would find me. I don't know.
The
Like-
FBI.
Like there's a lot for everyone, but you know, I think it's safe to say that there's a lot for Ignis.
I would have thought there would have been like mostly like Gladius or whatever. But
No.
I don't know.
Gladius,
Just
close enough.
yeah. Sorry. It's I did not think he. I as a normie, I guess, on this internet, that is not searched too deep, I did not think that he was overrated.
You're not Googling Ignis spicy pics on Google in your free time?
let me
Yeah, why aren't you doing research, though?
I think in terms of like this take itself, I would say that I don't agree with it because again, I think it's a little bit like what Rel said about 13, where I feel like the bar was a bit low in terms of like the cast. Where honestly, like Prompto had his little thing, like his little like energy, likes taking photos, blah blah blah, and then Gladio was like the generic sort of big guy, whatever. But like those two weren't, I think, the greatest. Like I like Prompto's like childhood story and like his backstory and stuff with Noctis, but I feel like compared to those guys, I still think even if you take away the good looks and the cooking, I still think that Ignis was a better character than those guys. Like watching his flashbacks and the fact that like he's always been so consistent with how much he's cared for Noctis and the lengths he's willing to go to help him and to protect him. And I think story-wise, he goes through like towards the end of the story, things get a bit more dramatic with him, and what happens to his eye and all that kind of stuff, where he obviously gains a little bit of extra sympathy as well and that kind of thing. And so I think when it's all said and done, he's a bit of a glue guy in the group as well. Like every team has its glue guy. Yeah. And I feel like Ignis serves that role with the team as well.
Yeah,
so,
who'd be steering this ship in 15 if it wasn't Ignis?
Yeah. He seriously has a special move called regroup. So let's talk about the glue here.
Yeah, there you go. So
and he has a pretty sexy voice. I'll give him that.
Boy, don't even get me started.
Erica's like, that's my man.
All right, yeah. I need a 5-minute break.
Yeah, we'll be back after this short break.
Yeah. I feel like there was not much to work with, I gotta say. I mean, like, people will come at us for not, like, I mean, there was prequels and, like, an anime and a movie, and, like, there was so much to, like, build up their relationship. But if I'm just looking at, like, 15 and, like, what is established of their roles in this, like, party and this group that you have, like, I found Ignis is pretty compelling, and I quite like that. If I try to objectively think about it, even without the looks, the accent, and the cooking, which I don't know, it's pretty hard for me, guys. I don't know, but like I feel like he had an important role to play, and it was like you needed that in 15. So.
And it's not like he's winning these polls that are who's your favorite Final Fantasy character. Like it's not. Ignis is not even close to the top there, so I just don't think he's been overrated or anything like that. I think, like you said, he played an important role, and I think they designed him to be in a way that he has those attractive qualities, and I think people are taking note of that and grabbing onto it.
They're just jealous they don't have an accent and they can't cook, okay?
Right?
Listen. Ignis in his DLC, I'm just going to say it, Ignis in his DLC, when he starts getting a little roughed up a little bit, like through the journey, and it's like one button comes down and his like hair's all coiffed all perfectly. Listen, that's my boy.
Okay, we're going to take another 5-minute break.
We really need some sponsors on this podcast so that like for these moments we can kind of just transition into a nice like sponsorship thing.
I don't know, this feels all pretty relevant.
Yeah.
Well, I just gotta work on my cooking and I'm pretty much Ignis, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, basically,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, accent's exactly the same.
Yeah,
I think maybe part of why Ignis was a little bit annoying sometimes, wasn't he the one that always shouted like Magitech troopers or whatever when there was one around? It was him, right?
Yeah.
Was it always him?
They're close.
Yeah, it's like you're just running around minding your own business. He just keeps yelling at you like, okay, calm down.
Okay, but let's not talk about Prompto every time. I can't remember the name of his move, but he's like, oh, hi there, opening. Like, you guys remember that one? So, man. Next to the Magitech troopers, they're close. That's pretty equivalent for sure.
Yeah, no, I do think I also liked Ignis the best. I think out of the crew as well. But yeah, I will say that this hot take actually came from Psych himself.
Oh,
Aw.
wow, we get bamboozled
here
by
we go.
Psych. Okay.
Yes, indeed. So he was
But-
curious to see what you guys thought of that one.
No,
I think
I think that Psych just wanted to hear us thirst over Ignis, so you
well,
got what you wanted.
Psych definitely won if that was his intention. Psych, come into the comments and tell us why you did this.
to be honest,
Let's throw down in the Thunderdome. No, none of us can ban each other, so
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
that's true.
equal ground. Let's throw down.
To be honest, I think Psych's distaste for 15 is pretty well documented. So I can believe him taking a shot at Ignis that for real. Like I can see that happening.
Psych and I have had many debates in Discord about 15,
Yeah.
so I can concur.
Yeah, I guess in that respect, like Ignis is kind of a bit of a golden boy in 15 because everybody can agree that he was like useful, great, and hot and can cook.
Mhm.
So need I say more?
Hey, Psych's got the baking skills and he's got the accent, so maybe he just sees this is some competition.
It's true. It's
There you go.
competition.
True.
Just like I can cook. I have an accent. Where's my tumbler of headcanons?
Hey, maybe it already exists. We just haven't searched
Have you
enough.
searched deep enough?
This is true. This is true.
Okay, we need another 5-minute break then while we search Psych's Tumblr.
Oh God.
Okay, I think I'm gonna wrap up the hot takes section. It was a fun one again. Thank you to everyone that sent them in. Like I say, I want to make this like a regular feature. It's always fun to talk about these, so I will be asking you guys again in the future. If your hot take didn't get picked, you can share it again, of course, next time. But like I said, don't try and make it too obvious that you're trying to have a hot take. I think most of these felt legit to me. Like I can definitely, like the snow one to me was the hottest of the hot takes, but even that felt like, yeah, I could see some people seeing that that's true. So look forward to more responses to hot takes in future modcasts. Thanks, guys. So we wanted to introduce a section that was not specifically about like Final Fantasy and gaming and all that kind of stuff, and maybe something that's maybe a bit more personal and about like the mods and their lives and their experiences and that kind of thing. So for this modcast, Josh is going to volunteer to kind of tell us about his story with being homeschooled, because for me, at least as someone that lives in the UK and that was sort of born and raised here, homeschooling was almost like a non-existent thing for me. So when we were first in the Discord and Josh like told us that he was homeschooled for part of his schooling, it was definitely something that was interesting and we had some conversations about it. So I figured it's a topic that we can maybe talk about here, and it should be something different for the modcast. So Josh, maybe you can tell us about your kind of story and your history with homeschooling, and we'll ask you about it.
Yeah, so, alright, so pretty much when I was 4, my mom taught me how to read because I asked her to. I begged her to teach me how to read because I think at the time she was giving my brother like extra lessons at home because he was having some troubles at that age. So I saw him like doing stuff at home and I was like, well, I want to do that. I want to know how to read. So I begged her until she did. And so that was the first like learning at home I did. And then pretty much from kindergarten to until I graduated high school, so 5 to 17, she homeschooled me. And all of my schooling through that age range was done at home.
That's crazy.
It changed a lot over the years. At first, it was all through books, but as I started getting older, certain different like classes I had would be like through computer programs, similar to like, well, not quite similar to online classes, but some of the assignments would be similar to what I had in like university online classes with sort of open book homeworks with multiple choice answers or like fill in the blank answers, that sort of thing. But yeah, it was mostly just a lot of reading books while being supervised until I was a bit older. Then it was reading books unsupervised, doing homework, when I was young, that homework was supervised as well. Until I got older, then I would do the homework unsupervised. And yeah, by the end of it, pretty much the only thing I was doing with like, my mom actually there was the tests. I was learning pretty much exclusively through books by like junior, senior year of high school.
So I have just two questions.
Yeah.
One being homework related. Like
Yeah.
what that kind of confuses. Like how did you like for us at school? Obviously, homework is different just because you're doing your schoolwork at home. So how did you differentiate between homework and just your regular schoolwork?
Okay, so basically there would be readings, and then at the end of them, questions to answer. Not some days were just reading, and then some days had like actual work after it. Math and stuff that always had practice, of course.
Right. Okay. So it's just like kind of like just any assignments, I guess, after the reading part, what you would consider like being your homework.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the other question I have is just, I guess it's a broader topic that you can get into, but like, how do you feel just like your development compared to both academically and socially comparative to someone who was not homeschooled?
For that question, as far as academically goes, I feel pretty good about it. Like I definitely learned to be self-sufficient in like doing stuff because just through the years, my mom got more hands off, and like not in a bad way, but in that I just got to take care of my own things, and she just made sure that I did it by the end of the day. Or by the end of the week. And I mean, by like senior year, there were some times where I had like a certain things to do for a day, and I would just say, I don't feel like doing this, and just do it the next day, sort of things. And I think that did prepare me kind of well for university and college, where things would have like a due date, and like I would be responsible for it myself. And that was good because I had experience with that. So, like, when I was a kid, she would sit down with me, be right in front of me, like, guide me through it. And I needed that. But then, as she sort of phased me out of that, that also worked in my advantage. So I think it really, really was a good thing for me academically.
I was going to ask, like, with the homeschooling system, like, is there a general, like, government body or any kind of educational body that oversees, like, the milestones that you're reaching at ages?
I'm pretty sure we had to register with the state, and she did have to turn some things in every year.
Yeah.
Okay. And did that also happen for like grading things, especially if I'm thinking about like objective things like writing and like creative writing and stuff like that?
I actually don't know. I was a kid at the time, like I was a very small child, so I don't really know what she did all to like keep things straight and organized.
But did you do things like you had creative writing in English and stuff like that as well, right? I mean, you in general really like reading, so like I wouldn't doubt that was part of your curriculum.
Debatable. I haven't read a book in like years. But
one thing that I'm curious about is that if, let's say, you're a parent that does want to homeschool your kid, how strong does your educational background and study need to be? Like, were there times where, let's say, once you got to like 15, 16, 17 and you're learning some higher level stuff, was there not times when like you couldn't get something and like maybe your mum's not as specialized in that area and she doesn't know how to help you either? Like, how does that side of things work academically?
Ideally, you would probably want to be able to at least do high school level of all subjects. Because if you're an adult who will struggle with like high school math and stuff, you can't really help someone to learn high school math. I mean, there's a lot of people who struggle with math. It's not like a bad thing, but you probably wouldn't want to homeschool your kids like as a parent.
Mm-hmm. How common would you say it is to, like, for the parent to do it, or like if they've got the money to be able to do it, like they literally have a teacher to teach them?
Probably would be better, like, in general, for a, like, trained teacher to do it. Because there are, like, homeschool associations.
Okay.
We didn't do it through an association, like, through any of, like, the groups. But,
I imagine that would be pretty expensive, though, right?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That like you probably at least you hear people having like their own personal tutors that they're probably fairly well off.
Yeah.
So that's what I imagine, but I have no idea.
I mean, that's a hell of a commitment, man, as a parent to kind of have the commitment and the sort of responsibility of taking your kid all the way through school academically. Like, that's crazy, man.
Yeah.
That's a really big thing to be able to do for your kid. That's awesome.
And not wanting to strangle them.
I'm pretty sure she wanted to strangle me. She might still want to strangle me. Who knows?
Yeah, like I wonder, like, was that decision made? Because it was just you that was homeschooled, right? Your siblings?
Yeah, my 3 older siblings went to public school.
Did she just not like the result? Because I know like a big reason that people do homeschooling is that they're just not pleased with the results that the public school was giving them in that area. Was that do you know if that was a factor in you being homeschooled?
I guess that was it. You know, I probably didn't ask enough questions as a kid because I didn't really care why. I just thought it was cool that I didn't have to go to school. And honestly, I got things done a lot faster than someone at school because, well, I got to read through things pretty quickly, got to do assignments pretty quickly, and then once it was done, I just got to move on to the next thing. Like, if I finished something early because I just got it,
right?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have to, like, sit through the class
I think I remember you mentioning, like, when we first started getting to know each other on Discord and stuff, that like academically you ended up getting a really good score in your uni test, right? So like literally academically you did well.
Yeah, academically I did well. On my ACT, which is like one of the tests that kind of is like
like college acceptance,
end of high school thing, college acceptance. Colleges look hard at that right now, and there's SAT. The SAT and the ACT. I didn't take the SAT. I took the ACT, and I got a 31 on it. Like, I made a 35 on English. I forget what, like a 32 or 33 on reading, and like I forget exactly what else. I think like a 20. Had a 29 and a 26 on math and science, but like I forget which one was which. But yeah, like I did good on that. I did good on that. Like, I was well prepared. I feel like my education was a good education.
So in terms of, Real asked about as well, but we didn't get to get to that part. Especially like once you went to college and you started to mix with people who didn't come from the same homeschooling background, like socially growing up, because obviously for so many of us, literally having school friends, like pretty much all of my best friends growing up were from high school. So what was it like socially for you, for someone that didn't mix with people in high school every day or like school?
Oh, yeah. So, I'm going to be honest, I kind of had to claw my way up and get socially prepared to deal with people very quickly.
Yeah, that's probably like 0 to 100 real fast.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I really had any friends like outside, because the only person I hung out with around my age growing up was my cousin, and then after that I don't think I really had any friends until I was about like 14, 15, and even then I was never really close with them, and I didn't really know how to have friends. But then once I got to college, I just kind of like made it work.
Was it something that was like kind of terrifying for you, or was it like, oh my god, this is like a brand new world, I'm so excited to be able to just have so many people my own age around me every day?
I had more the latter, honestly. Cool. Yeah, it just felt good to be able to cut loose, be myself, and kind of like hang out with people in my own way. Fine.
You were living in dorms, right? When you were in university?
Yeah.
That would have been really cool too.
Yes, that must have been such a crazy transition, even more so than the normal
Yeah,
person, just because
to
you have that
always
added factor.
to be home 24/7 every day for all the way through school, and then go to college, and now I'm in a dorm every day, overseeing myself.
I will say something about even if there is a stark difference between not really socializing with people in your educational sphere when you're in high school to having a lot of it in university. I always found that specifically in high school, I feel like you make those friends out of forced proximity to people, right? And I'm not saying that you can't make friends in high school. That's I still have a lot of friends from there too. But I always find that I think I clicked far better with people that I met in university in that way.
It's kind of funny though.
Because at that point you're already kind of siphoned into groups where you mingle because you have mutual classes, because you're studying the same things. It's it felt easier to click with people there.
But it is kind of funny because you say that, but pretty much most of the friends that I made in university were people who either I roomed with or lived down the hall.
Same.
And so I lived with them, and I made friends out of proximity, but they ended up being some of my best friends, and there's still people from the dorms that are my best friends. My two best friends are my final roommate that I had, because I had 4 different roommates my first 4 semesters, and after that I roomed with the same person the rest of my time, and that's one of my best friends. And my other best friend was just someone who was friends with my first roommate, and so I met him through them. And so I don't think there's anything bad with making friends out of proximity, but you do have way more freedom to just make friends out of common interest or personality or whatever other thing you bond over in university than you do in high school, for sure. So much freedom there.
When you were being homeschooled from grade school and high school and stuff, did you ever have the urge or want to go to public school?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. Because, my brother was in public school, so, he would get on the bus at, I don't even know what time of day, and get home at, 4, probably, 4 in the afternoon, and, have homework almost every day after that. Meanwhile, I'm waking up at, 10, 11 a.m. a lot of days, and having school done by, 2 p.m.
God.
So, I'm waking up after my brother.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah.
Finishing before my brother, and still getting a good education and learning things.
Yeah.
So why would I want that?
I guess you don't really think about it, but I guess a lot of the process of going to school is there's so many gaps in time where it's not actual dense periods of learning any kind of material. And when you're homeschooled, you really skip all that, and your day is just in general shorter. That's actually really nice.
I wonder, just logistically nowadays, if just this nature of homeschooling in general is going to change, because now there's probably just so much more virtual learning that instead of parents doing homeschooling, if you can just stay at home and just do virtual learning instead.
Yeah, I really don't know.
So.
I already know that there's a few of my coworkers that have kids. One of them, his son just started grade 1, and they just completely transitioned to online learning. He's just gonna do grade 1 purely at home, not even a transition period where he's doing classes at a school. And he's saying it's pretty good so far. I mean, aside from just I guess the juggle of having a young kid at home, I guess in the off periods when they're not strictly learning a lesson, I guess, is like kind of distracting. But he's like, as far as his education goes, he's saying it's pretty good.
The virtual learning, at least in my opinion, that early of an age, I can see that not being as effective because, when I was in first grade, I just wanted to jump around the room all day, and even paying attention in class was a struggle for me, and so I can't even imagine how difficult it might be for first grader to have to sit in front of a computer, which itself has so many distractions, and to focus on the classroom. It's got to be quite a challenge.
Yeah, at least in Turkey last year, basically the entire academic year was done online, so no one went to school last year. Yeah, like that's how they decided to do it when the pandemic hit. So like 2020 October to like June of 2021, and I've got a couple of cousins. I think one's like 11 or something, and the other's like 15, 16. And I think one of the interesting things was we spoke as like a family with my uncle and my aunt, and they were saying how obviously this academic year, because things are better than they were like in the last one, they've started to physically go back to school. And previously, like their daughter, the younger one of the two, she wasn't really much of a fan of school. She didn't really like going that much and that kind of thing. And she was like, you should see her now. She was so excited to be able to go back to school and like mingle with, the kids there and her friends and that kind of thing. And it's different for everyone, I guess. But especially I think for younger kids, it seems like they really do need that sort of ability to just like mingle and learn some of the most like basic socializing stuff, that kind of thing. I'm sure obviously, Josh is a testament to the fact that you obviously learn it and you can be taught in other ways, but school, it does feel like a very sort of organic way to pick up some of the non-tangible stuff that you gain from being in that environment, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I'm just built different.
I remember seeing a video back in college where there was an argument that said like kids should be able to like test out of like I forget exactly the argument, but the general gist was the kids should be able to like move ahead easier and be able to, if they can test out of things, then they can move ahead the grade. And I forget, it wasn't really that as simple as that. It was a little bit more complex, but at least one of the arguments I had against that video was, I think it's a good process of keeping the kid, a kid with the same age group, growing up and in the same, like having classes with kids in the same age group, because school, in my opinion, is like not just about the academic learning, but you're mentally learning how to socialize as well, and you're doing that with other kids who are in that same stage, and you're doing that together, sort of thing. So like in my opinion, schools also teaches kids how to socialize to other people and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. I do think that there's important aspects of socialization that I missed growing up, and I had to like pick up on later in life. And that said, I do think there's unhealthy like aspects of socialization that people pick up in school that aren't great.
Yeah, I was just gonna say like that. That's why it kind of surprised me when you said you were homeschooled, because I at least to me, you seem like you were able to learn all the social cues and all that kind of stuff. And not to say that everybody who's homeschooled is missing social cues or anything like that, but I would expect at least like a little deviation, I guess. But nothing I couldn't pick up on anything like that, I guess.
Yeah, but it's definitely an interesting perspective. So it sounds to me like you don't really have any regrets, and you're generally happy.
Oh, absolutely not.
That's awesome,
dude. I had so much time to play video games. You don't understand.
Josh, if you were to have children in the future, would you homeschool your kids?
No, probably not. I think I'd probably put them into school. It depends on like. Yeah, in this hypothetical situation, if I have children, which I despise children, and I really don't plan to have children, but If I hypothetically had children, it really depends on the situation, because if I could afford it, I would probably put my kids into a private school. But like, other than that, I would probably put my kids into a public school. Like, I think if you raise your kids well, a public school education in the United States is fine. Like,
I mean, there are schools up this way. I mean, I know a lot of, kids that I've coached and everything like that through softball. They're all in private schools because the Philadelphia schools are just, not that great.
Yeah, private schools are going to be better. And I mean, that's kind of one of the reasons why, if I could afford to put my kids into a private school, I would. Because the way I see it, you give someone, like, a life. Like, I would want to give that person the best, like, chance in life that I could, and giving them the best education I could would be one of those things that I would really want to do for my kids.
And I think, too, I mean, like, where I went to public school, like, our public school was great. But not every situation is like that. So, obviously going, the private school route or the homeschooling route, whatever is best for your situation.
But private schooling is really expensive, so
yeah, it is.
It's really expensive.
Like, it's really a main consideration for me probably going to move in the near future. Just the school system where I'm at right now is not the best, so I think it's a big enough reason for me to want to move in the next few years in order for me to provide a better school system for my future kids.
The Canadian school system is pretty different, I think, from the American one. But, like, yeah, it feels like there's such a there's something to be, I don't know, like, feared about, like, the state of, like, what is taught in public schools, that, like, it makes going to private schools is such a bougie thing in Canada, or at least, like, from my understanding, it very much is. And, like, not a lot of, like, it's a very rare thing to see kids enter private schools. But I guess it's far more common if you have the financial means, I guess, in the States, right?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's pretty bougie in my area too, to be honest. But, like, that's what I said. If, like, in the hypothetical situation, I had the, like, monetary means to do it, because most people are not going to have the means to do that.
In the US, do they have, like, grammar schools there? So, like, basically schools that will take you based on academic performance alone. So, like, over here we had the test called the 11 plus, which is like a test that measures, like, your academic potential, I guess, you take when you're at the end of primary school. And there's schools that will accept you in if you get a good enough score on that test, and they're basically, like, it's like the cream of the crop academically, and you don't have to pay anything extra to go there, but it just takes it based on academic merit. Is that a thing in the US?
I don't, at least around the Philadelphia school district, I can't think of anything that was like that off the top of my head.
There are some schools that, like, interview, like, parents and things like that. I mean, before they accept those kids. And obviously, there's also spacing issues and things like that at private schools. So sometimes kids are waitlisted because there's not enough space at that private school, but they really want to go there, etc. But I don't really know if it's purely based on academics, especially because here in the US, and I don't know what they do elsewhere, but they will, like, grade you on, like, a letter scale, like O for outstanding or S for satisfactory. There's really not, like, grades necessarily.
Yeah. I had those in my grade school as well. But I thought that was only a Catholic school thing, but I guess not.
Yeah, I don't know. In the UK, as far as I know, there's 3 different routes. There's, like, the public school route, there's the 11 plus route, and then there's the private school route. And obviously, for most families, like 95% of families, it's like you go to public school. And then if you're lucky, you're smart enough, you maybe you go to a grammar school. And then again, if you're smart enough, then maybe you get a scholarship. And getting a scholarship is freaking tough, because I remember when I was around that sort of high school age, like 10 or 11, I was going to start high school. we tried to see if I could maybe get into like a grammar school or a private school or anything like that. And they have like their entrance exams and stuff to see if there's anyone there that's academically capable enough to get a scholarship. And I think I got a scholarship for a private school, but it wasn't enough. I think I got like a quarter scholarship or a half scholarship or something. And even that was just like, it was way out of reach financially. So it's like either you get the 100% or you go home. Like there's no other alternative for most people. So I just went like to a state school in the end, and it was fine. I mean, I had a really good time in school, and I have no like regrets about it. But it's just weird how much it can change your fate, I guess.
Yeah, it's definitely shapes who you are as your education.
Were your brothers were your siblings jealous of you being homeschooled and them not be? Being homeschooled, rather.
I don't know, because I think they all just thought,
they're too busy doing homework.
No. I think they all just thought, oh no, he like doesn't have any friends. He's gonna like turn out horrible. Like he's gonna turn out stunted. Like, but I think it turned out pretty good.
I think so too.
One thing I'm definitely curious about is like I do wonder how easy it is to pull a kid from school. So like I'm just wondering, is it one of these things where you could have some parents, let's just imagine a hypothetical scenario where like they have a family business, or like they don't want their kid in school. They're like, you know what, forget school, school's for losers. I'm just going to say that my kid's going to be homeschooled and I'll just get him to work in the family business or whatever. Like how easy is it to just take a kid out of school just because that's what you want to do as a parent? Like I feel like in the UK it'd be extremely difficult to pull a kid from school, but I don't know if in the US they make it a bit easier because homeschooling seems a bit more of a common thing there. I don't know.
I don't know.
I
don't know how.
Go ahead.
I don't know how easy it would be for people like fake it, I guess, because we were really like serious about it, and that thought just never really came across.
Yeah, I don't know what, like, I do wonder what the procedures are, like what the paperwork is and like all that kind of shit.
Yeah, I know, I think it varies state by state here, but I know, I think in Pennsylvania that you do have to like register that your kid is homeschooled, and then that will prompt like either you have to get the curriculum from the state, and then by the end of the term that somebody has to like come test your child and or give them examinations and stuff like that to make sure that they've been learning what you supposedly say that you've been teaching them. So I think there is some definite like process by the state that makes sure that you're not just like letting your kid not be educated, I guess, because I know they take that pretty seriously here. You have to get your GED or high school stuff.
I heard that table kid didn't do gym, so
yeah, undocumented.
Pretty sketch if you ask me. A little
running
sussy.
Around in the yard was not considered gym.
Yeah. Eating dirt in your backyard doesn't count as gym.
Actually, speaking of, I think there's like a final thing that I'm generally curious about. With like athletics and college in America, they have a very weird relationship that just doesn't really exist in somewhere like the UK. And you hear like all of these basically professional athletes that also get college scholarships, and they all go to college and stuff. What like based on you guys and your experience in college, what is it like for like a legit college athlete in college? Are these guys basically just like really amazingly talented sports people that technically look like they're attending the school, but really they're just spending all their time helping the school win championships and whatever? Or are they legit students that are actually in class doing the work, but also doing things sporting wise as well? How does that even work?
So they are technically students, and they do have to go to the classes and stuff like that. But I think there's definitely some sort of partnership with the team and this whatever sport they're dealing with. That for example, I went to Villanova, and that's a very huge college basketball university, and they're obviously one big thing with college basketball is March Madness, and people are supposed to be in school during March, but these guys are out, taking a whole month to play basketball. But I think they do have some sort of, like, they are students. They do, have to go to class and take the tests and pass everything. But one, I think they take like some of the easier majors. But obviously that's a bit of a generalization, but not all of them do. Yeah. But and then they have some sort of agreement with the teachers that say, like, hey, this student needs to do this for this, for the basketball team. Here, can you like get his assignments for him or her while they're gone? And they work out some sort of agreement to make sure that the athlete, because they're student athletes, to make sure that they can still get their work done and go through the whole curriculum still.
Yeah, I do think that there is a relationship between how much leniency the athletes get and how much money that program brings to the school.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If it's a big basketball school or a big football school and you're on the basketball or football team, you're gonna have like a lot of wiggle room.
Yes.
Whereas a school like I went to, where we don't really have any of our athletics. Well, we have one of the best water ski teams in the nation. Weirdly enough, they've won so many national championships. Yeah, so specific, I know. But other than that, or other sports, like, not really that much to note. So I would always see, like, guys from our football team in classes, and, like, they had to do the same work as us. They had to take the same tests. Like, they might get, like, things might have been lenient on, like, scheduling, but they still had to, like, take care of things.
Yeah, that's the one thing that, like, it always surprises me, though, because, like, if I break it down, you're still in these classes, regardless of how much, like, whatever leniency means, I guess. Like, at the end of the day, you still have to do that work. You still have to get graded, and you still only have the 24 hours in a day to do anything that you want to do, right? So, like, something has to give, and I'm so curious about what that leniency is, because to me it still feels like you still have to do that work, right?
Yeah, and I mean, based on what I've seen, I mean, I watch the NBA, and I've seen a bit of like college basketball and stuff, and it's like these guys are still at a pretty elite level. Like, the best college level players are basically NBA ready. So you almost have like NBA level players that still have to bloody go to school all the time and stuff. And it's like, how on earth does anyone juggle all of that at the same time? Like, how can you? It feels almost like exploitive, because they can't earn money as college athletes. From what I know.
Yes, they can. Now they
can.
Now
they
can.
Now
they can.
Okay, well now they
Or
can.
not the
That's
law,
good.
the rule. It was a NCAA rule. Yeah,
that's good. Yeah, that's good at least. But like previously, for a long time, they couldn't, right? And it's like, that's so exploitive, man. Like, they're making all this money off all the ticket sales and like using them for promotion and like all that kind of stuff. And like, these kids don't get a cent, and they have to do all the schoolwork on top. It's like, whoa, that's hard.
So
the NCAA. Oh wait, go ahead, Erica.
No, go ahead. You're good, Josh.
I was just gonna say the NCAA finally caved into the pressure and started allowing them to like make money off of certain things.
Allowing them.
So I think
Jesus, they
So I think from what I heard, it's not that they literally get paid, but I think they're able to get their own deals and stuff.
Yes,
brand deals and everything.
They don't get paid by the schools like for what they do.
Okay.
But so I for people who don't know, I played college softball at a D3 school.
Yes.
So how it looked for me was entirely different than what a Villanova or an Alabama or an Oklahoma University would look like, if I had double headers that were away and I needed to leave class early, I did, obviously get that permission, but I had to request that permission in advance. So I think it also kind of depends on, where you are in, the importance of academics versus, anything else. And then I think too, Bert, kind of going to your point of, these athletes being quote unquote paid for brand deals and things like that. I feel like, especially in the United States, we've kind of gotten into this habit of glamorizing these college athletes, when in reality, like, I understand that a lot of these athletes do end up making it to the NFL or the NBA or something like that. But the way I've always thought about it is that they're students first. So if football doesn't work out, if basketball doesn't work out, then, you know, where are we next? So I feel like, you know, all of these fans and everything like that, glamorizing these athletes to where they're getting these brand deals. And I'm not saying that they're not deserved, but I feel like there's such a heavy weight on just being an athlete and not really thinking about the other side of it, which is realizing how important academics are as well.
Yeah, I mean, because especially as a percentage, even if you've got to college level, the amount of people that are truly going to make it is still very low. And that must be pretty crushing to, because it feels like you kind of fell off at the last hurdle. Like you got to college and you're in like a team, and let's say you go undrafted and like that kind of thing. It must be like really crushing to know that you haven't made it.
But I mean, a lot of college athletes understand that they're not ever going to make it into the pros, and like this is as high as they're going to get.
Yeah, and I think at least with the NCAA, which is the organization that is in charge of a lot of the college athletes, I think they do still set guidelines on academic performance, and like if you don't have the certain grade level, then you cannot play essentially. So they do have regulations that do that. Now I don't know. I'm sure there are still some teachers that get pressured to grade athletes a certain way. I don't know how common that is.
Oh, I'm sure
that's gotta be a thing. But there's and even still, like I know as a Villanova fan, they've won a few championships in the past couple of years, and even though they're not NBA drafted, but I think they do. I just saw one player like plays overseas still, so even though that the professionals is probably everybody's main goal, there are still other options for people who mainly focused on that sport during their college career.
Yeah, I just wonder if you can't just, like, for me, I was just like, I've never played like a college or university level sports or anything like that, so I don't know what that pressure feels like and like how it feels to juggle those two things. But my immediate solution would just be like, can't we just stretch out the time that they have to play and finish their education? I guess if it has to do with sports, like, you know, your body has limitations that like time is working against, I suppose. But like, I wish that were an option, but I guess there are rules against that.
Yeah, I think with college basketball during the season, they play twice a week, and a lot of times that's away. And so like that's crazy. It's definitely crazy. Like if they have a stretch where they're away for 2 games, like I think they usually play like on a Tuesday or Wednesday, and then a Saturday. That's a whole week of being out of school.
Yeah.
And I know. Like if I were to go a week without my like a class, my degree, like I would be just lost, and I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, I'd derail so fast after like just a week of not having classes.
Yep. I mean, for us, we would play 2 to 3 double headers. So we would have a game Monday, a game Wednesday, or well, 2 games Monday, 2 games Wednesday, and then another 2 games Saturday. And then in between that time, you went to class all day, and then you went to practice from, 6 to 7:30. The dining commons closed at 8, so you had about 30 minutes to go feed yourself, and then you were going back to, shower, study. You would study till about midnight, and then you would, get up 7 hours later for an 8 a.m.
Oh my God.
So time management is just so crucial.
Did you ever have to travel far for?
Yeah, I mean, we would travel sometimes like 5-6 hours and then have to drive back that after the double header. So first game for a double header is at 4:00. The second one's not till probably about 6, which means we're not leaving until 8. We're not getting back till 11. And then you got to get up for an 8 a.m. And a lot of the time we would bring homework on the bus and things like that. And I got terribly I get badly car sick.
Right.
So
Same.
like any work that I couldn't do because I felt car sick in this big bus, I had to do it 2:00 in the morning in the like little library area on our hall.
That's brutal.
You know?
Wow.
Yeah, it's definitely.
Yeah, so I guess it's not as glamorous as it sounds. I was always wondering, like, is it one of those things where because you're a college athlete, you get like all this special treatment and like you're basically like a god on campus? And I'm sure there are like a small percentage, like people that you know are going to make it that do have that kind of experience. But I feel like for a lot of athletes, it's like a really legit grind, and you've got to really enjoy the sport, because I think, like Josh said as well, I think there must be a lot of athletes that probably know that there's almost no chance they're going to go pro, but they must really love what they do to still be dedicated enough to go to all those games and do all the training and do school as well. So, I mean, props to them, I guess.
Yeah, it's not like... Go ahead, Erica.
For women, there's not really any professional sports. You have the WNBA, and now they're coming out with professional softball. But, I mean, when I went to college and was playing softball, I knew that I wasn't going pro. I wasn't going to go make millions of dollars like, an NFL player. It's just because I wanted to play.
And it's like, I mean, this is a bit of a generalization, but I'm sure like a lot of like recruiters for companies, it's like they'll see, I don't know, like that's not really such a selling point, I guess, for a lot of companies that say like you were on this team. Like they would for technical companies, they just want to see like academic numbers. Really, that's more important than the the sports end of your resume, I guess. So
yeah,
it really is just the love of the game.
Yeah, and you have to think too, like, and I don't know if it's the same thing overseas and everything like that, but if you're a D1 athlete and you have a full scholarship for football, let's just say, and you get injured and you can't play, you lose that scholarship. That's it.
Yep.
It's a one and done. So, like, you really have to keep yourself healthy, and, it's just so multifaceted. And I couldn't, like, lucky for me, if I were to get injured, like I broke my nose and had to get surgery when I was playing in college, and I didn't lose my scholarships because of that. Because I was a D3 athlete, and primarily a lot of it was academic for me. But there are D1 athletes who don't have that luxury, Yeah.
Damn, that's fascinating. I mean, like I said, the whole like athletes and college system in the US has always really interested me, because it's just one of them things. I feel like if I was in the US, I always had an interest in sports and like athletics and that kind of thing. But in the UK, at least, it always felt to me too much like it's got to be one or the other. Like you have to dedicate your life to your sport and your sport only if you ever want to get anywhere. But in the US, it kind of feels like you could, at least up until the point at which you could go pro, you can kind of have the best of both worlds, and you can still be within like an academic system while excelling at sport. And I do feel like that's one of the things that, at least on paper, or like theoretically, it seems like that the US does well with its school system. If you are interested in sports and athletics, it does really feel like that really integrates with your school experience, rather than, for me, it like athletics and sports always felt disconnected from school, and that was not something that was as good, I think. So it's definitely interesting. Okay, does anyone have any final words on this topic before we wrap this thing up?
I don't think so.
I'm good. Go Nova.
Okay. Yeah, we have gone about almost 2.5 hours deep. So I think... Sorry, go ahead.
We really went in there. We were saying 90 minutes, but here we are.
Yeah. I had a feeling that might happen, but I feel like it's better to sort of under-promise and over-deliver when it comes to that stuff.
I had a lot of fun.
Just like Ignis. I mean, what?
No.
Bay.
Yeah, I mean, not every modcast is going to be this long. Maybe some are going to be even longer. I don't know, but we're just kind of going with the flow, and I think the conversation just flowed in that direction, and we were vibing. So here we are at 2.5 hours. But
yeah, I mean, some modcasts may not be as thirsty as this one, and some may be thirstier. You just have to come back and find out, guys.
Exactly. Yeah. Depends on how spicy the takes are as well. Maybe some of the takes are just going to get people going, and they're going to spend an hour just debating the take.
I can see
how many spicy Googles we need to do.
Exactly. Okay, so I think it's time we should sign off. So thank you so much to Real Deal, Josh, Selena, and Erica for joining us. So say goodbye, guys. Let's sign off.
Thanks for having us.
Yep. Take care, guys. This was a
Goodbye.
lot of fun.
Bye.
See you later. Take
and
care.
listen, if you don't agree with us in the comments, you're banned. That's it. Nice knowing you.
No. Actually, what we want is we want you to throw down in the comments with us. We will not ban you unless you say some really weird stuff. But we want to throw down.
Yeah, don't get weird.
And then ban you.
We'll throw down.
We want a very long comment chain.
And then we'll ban you.
No links to the spiciness.
Don't make it weird, but we're here to fight.
Yeah. And then ban you. We need to hit that home, guys. I'm kidding. Maybe not.
You never know with Erica.
Yeah.
And what her thigh is feeling that day.
She might ban you on accident with her thigh. You just don't know.
You don't know.
It's been known to happen.
Yeah. The legends do say.
Okay, guys. I will see you all later. Thank you all for joining me, and I hope you guys enjoyed this modcast. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.